every cup race that I ever ran, for me, was like playing in the Super Bowl, okay? And it didn't matter to me that we were going to lose 50-0. We were there. When you're sitting there and the national anthem's over and it's "Gentlemen, start your engines," and you hit the button and the motor fires up, all that shit goes away. I mean, and just for that little bit of time, you have peace and tranquility in the race car, and you get to focus on racing, and all that other bullshit that you went through to get there just kind of doesn't matter.
As if by divine retribution, they returned from the brink of extinction in even greater numbers. They aroused anger in some, admiration in others, but each knew 2004 was their chance to rise. They were the Field Fillers! Andy Belmont was actually born Charles Belmont on November 20th, 1957, named for his uncle Charlie, who ran AAA sprint car races in the 1940s. The younger Belmont was born in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, which was home to the infamous Langhorne Speedway. Just 2 months earlier, NASCAR's Cup Series had run the perfectly circular 1-mile track for the final time, following a series of serious accidents. In 1964, a 7-year-old Belmont went to his first NASCAR race at Daytona, taking the long ride south with his father in a mail truck converted into a camper. His parents were part of a group called the Racegoers, a group of 25 families who would park their campers together each year and fly banners for their favorite drivers. Belmont was hooked immediately, rooting for the likes of Bobby Allison and David Pearson, who would sometimes join the Racegoers for a beer by the campfire. Belmont dreamed of one day competing in NASCAR. These dreams would sometimes get him in trouble at school, as it had in the 2nd grade when he drew pictures of Richard Petty's car during cursive practice, drawings that were quickly confiscated. As it happened, his father served as a crew chief since the late 50s and gained an apprentice in his son at his repair shop. His parents would also drop him off at local dirt tracks, where he'd work for John Grant and Howie Cox, who would then drive him back home late at night. In time, Belmont earned an opportunity to race dirt small block modifieds for Bob Fisher, starting in 1976. He won his first race at Nazareth in '77 and won the track championship there in 1980. By 1987, he had 40 feature wins to his credit. He'd run at Bridgeport on Fridays, then Flemington on Saturdays. The pursuit of speed proved infectious. No matter how big the margin of victory, Belmont, now a practiced fabricator, could be found with welder and torch, dial indicators, and string line, trying to make his car even faster. After his first pavement start at Pocono in 1986, Belmont's next step up the ladder was the NASCAR Charlotte Daytona Dash Series. Later known as the Goody's Dash Series, this division ran subcompact cars on a combination of short tracks and super speedways. Belmont entered competition there in 1987, driving a Pontiac J2000 with an '87 Hopkins chassis. Mount Airy Lodge and McCafferty Ford of Langhorne were his sponsors at the start of the year. He very nearly won the opening round at Daytona, leading with 13 laps to go, as one of only 3 cars on the lead lap. But a missed shift broke a valve spring and dropped him back in the order. "For our first race here, I was satisfied," said Belmont. "They knew we were here." The same race also drove home the dangers of the sport. Joe Young, one of his fellow competitors, was killed when a blown engine on lap 37 spun him into the path of dual Sturgill's Mercury. "I had gotten to know him during the week," said Belmont of Young. "I didn't see the accident, but when I drove by and saw the car, it kind of unnerved me." Belmont scored his first career win that year at Hickory in October, paving the way to a Rookie of the Year title. He returned in '88 to win 11 of the 15 races on the way to the championship. In 1989, he won his 2nd straight pole for the series season opener at Daytona. When his familiar number 14 was taken, Belmont instead chose the number 59. He did so because the number had been run by Pat Reese, another modified racer he'd worked with in his youth. Belmont would also joke that the number 59 was always Tiger Tom Pistone's, and that the NASCAR veteran just loaned it to him. But the high point of the '89 season came on September 17th, when Belmont made his NASCAR Winston Cup debut at Dover. The opportunity came about thanks to Don Hawk, one of Belmont's competitors in modifieds, who had since become the director of motorsports for Winter Ford Group. Driving for the Ford team of George Hakes, whose New York-based effort had debuted at Pocono with Bob Schacht, Belmont qualified the number 04 car 35th on the grid of 40. He ran 373 laps before brake issues took him out of the event, still good enough for 29th place. Belmont wouldn't have another opportunity in the series until the same race 2 years later, where Pat Ricci himself made his own Cup debut as team owner. Carrying sponsorship from Slick 50 Motor Oil, Belmont qualified last and finished there, out after just 11 laps due to handling issues. For the rest of the year, he made ends meet as a car salesman for a local Ford dealership.
You know, I just had a dream. I wanted to be in the Cup, and didn't really have a clue as to how big of a jump it was going to be. And, and then when we got there, obviously there's haves and have-nots. Doesn't take you long to figure out you're a have-not. But, it just kind of didn't matter. We just wanted to be there.
Though he had just one full-time crew member at the time, Belmont made a big step forward in 1992. Recall in episode 1 of this series where I mentioned that Jimmy Hensley won Rookie of the Year in part because no other newcomer made more than 8 starts. That driver was none other than Andy Belmont. I asked Andy about what cars he had at his disposal that year.
Damn, we had some shit boxes. We had a car we got from Elliott. I had 2 cars that I bought that were ex-Junior Johnson cars that Pancho Carter drove, and Doug Rickert was the crew chief. And at that time, and then I think we got a car. We got a Buick from Stavola Brothers. I cut the body off of it, and then Junie gave me a body to hang on and make it a Ford. And and there wasn't the way the templates were back then. They're nowhere near what they are today. So if you were not, you couldn't be off a country mile, but if you were off a little bit, you could still get by. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we had 5 or 6 cars back then, and I had Joey Arrington was doing my engines.
These older cars proved to be a handful, as NASCAR mandated radial tires year-round in place of bias plies, making his flexible Banjo Matthews-style chassis handle terribly on most tracks. He didn't have a choice but to make do with them. He was running on a shoestring budget. He'd ferry the cars to the track on a trailer pieced together from old UPS trailers at a junkyard that once sponsored him. The ramps were steel from the roof of a scrap caboose turned restaurant. To fuel his tractor, he would go through the junkyard and suck the diesel fuel out of anything that was towed in. Up to 900 gallons of fuel would be stored in saddle tanks welded together inside the trailer. A feed line fed to the tractor, allowing him to make it to and from the track without stopping. This was his rig of choice until years later, when he bought one of Jimmy Means' old haulers.
I drove the tractor trailer from our shop, broke down, drove 23 hours straight. Was on the road 23 hours straight with the breakdown, driving, blah, 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 get there and unload the car and literally drink a quart of Mountain Dew so you can wake up so you can get in the car and go out there and race.
But all that adversity hardly mattered for one important reason. 1992, of course, was the same season that Richard Petty would run his famous Fan Appreciation Tour, his last as a Cup Series driver. As a 10-year-old fan attending a race in Trenton, New Jersey, Belmont had Petty sign his tickets. Interestingly, the serial number on his ticket was 59, the same as his current car number. During the 92 season, Belmont would have Petty sign his garage pass, which Belmont keeps with his ticket in his office to this day. During preseason testing, Dick Beatty of NASCAR had taken Belmont aside, put his arm around him, and said, "Son, if you want to chase your dreams, this is the year." Belmont already knew.
We were at Daytona one year. I guess it was 91, 92. I can't remember what year it was, but we were there, and we were testing, and I wanted to make a gear change, and I didn't have another gear to put in. So I took the gear out of the car, and I had a ring and pinion with me, and I was literally building the gear on the bench. And,
Wow.
you know, Elmo Langley came over and said, "What the hell are you doing?" You know, and I said, "Build the gear, you know. Need to change a gear, and, you know, can't afford the whole hog, so I got the ring and pinion. So I built the gear, and Elmo jumped in and helped me. And then, you know, I guess it was, you know, 92, we were struggling to get up to speed, and Henley Gray came over there and helped us out. And, you know, it was just I think a lot of the help that was offered was simply because guys saw how bad I wanted to do it, how bad I wanted to be there. And, you know, you know, desire is a big thing. And, you know, I just wanted it the worst way.
Belmont did everything he could to race against the King in his final Daytona 500. The only car in his fleet put up a slow speed in qualifying, placing him 28th in the 29-car lineup for the first twin 125-mile qualifier. Early on, his odds improved when he avoided a multi-car pileup on lap 5 that eliminated 6 cars, and eventually Richard Petty himself. On the restart, he locked onto the rear bumper of Hut Strickland's Robustus Chevrolet, holding down 16th and 17th place. Belmont ultimately passed Strickland by the finish, believing he had just raced his way in. Unfortunately, his crew had miscalculated. Sterling Marlin, the pole sitter, had dropped out early, taking the spot that Belmont needed. Sent home as one of 16 DNQs, Belmont nevertheless made $3,500 for his efforts and set his sights on the next race. Belmont's goal was to run the full 1992 season, but 3 races into the year he'd failed to qualify at both Daytona and Richmond, and at Rockingham he turned just 27 laps before the relief valve in the oil pump jammed and caused a leak. His only engine blew in Atlanta, sending him home early once again. This forced Belmont to run on an even tighter budget, even having his pit crew collect lug nuts from the 3 pit stalls on either side of his after each race. But Belmont received a lot of help from his competitors, particularly his fellow Ford teams. Ernie Elliott provided him with front clips, which were delivered from the luggage compartment of a Greyhound bus. The Wood brothers unloaded a truckload of exhaust pipes that they were going to throw out. Larry McReynolds helped him with spindles. Even Alan Kowicki sold him engines, provided valves and valve springs, and had Belmont run some different cylinder heads he wanted to test. For a time, Belmont lived with members of the Kowicki crew, including Danny Glad, Shane Barstow, and Jimmy Schneider. All of them lived in the Oakwood, which was Ken Schrader's modular house in Concord.
You know, listen, it's really easy for guys to be an open book with you when you're not going to have a chance to beat them.
Belmont's assistance came at a time when Ford enjoyed their best season in years, a connection that Belmont himself downplays as mere coincidence. There was one particular example where his services were used to help a General Motors team. Enter Derek Cope, who was still driving for Bob Whitcomb Racing's Chevrolet team. Purelator, Cope's sponsor, was owned by Pennzoil, and the company wanted the team to run Pennzoil in their engines so it could be tested on the track. The team's engine builder, however, preferred Mobil 1. This is how several cases of Pennzoil ended up in Andy Belmont's garage, with instructions to drain the used oil and return it in special containers after the race. Later in the year at Darlington, Belmont would receive scuffed tires from the Whitcomb team. Belmont made sure to reciprocate any kindness when he could. In July, Davey Allison was seriously injured in a crash at Pocono, where Belmont himself finished a season-best 28th. After the checkered flag, the Pennsylvania-based 59 team was there to help with Allison's planned return to the track at Talladega. Belmont himself lived just an hour from the Lehigh Valley Hospital in Allentown, where Allison was staying. The Tuesday after the accident, he set a steering wheel and a couple gear shift levers so the cast could be crafted, then on Wednesday sent one of his cars. Allison gingerly climbed into Belmont's number 59 in the hospital parking lot, testing the new cast.
You know, he was broke up pretty good, but they were going to make a prosthetic so that he could drive the next week at Talladega. So we actually sent a car to the hospital so that they could make what they needed so Davey could run. And then at the time, our sponsor, they had a small jet and they were going to fly us to Talladega. And, like, you know, we were like kids in a candy store thinking we're going to get to fly. You know, because we drove everywhere. You know, we had, you know, a van with 300,000 miles on it. Wow. And, but we took the car up there to the hospital. They did whatever they did with Davey. And then the following week at Talladega, I got introduced as one of the charter member of the Alabama gang.
As it happens, Belmont had also been injured that year at Pocono, suffering a concussion in a practice accident. He first followed another driver into turn 1 to get his bearings back, but then had to try something else for single car runs. One of his crewmen stood at a spot in the infield and told Belmont, "Don't lift until you see me." The strategy worked. Back at the 11th race of the season at Dover, associate sponsor Friction Division Products, or FDP Brakes, had stepped up their backing, and the distinctive teal and pink uniforms were easy to spot from the driver's seat. The new sponsor allowed Belmont to upgrade to a larger garage with 3 race-ready cars, one for short tracks, another for super speedways, and a third that served as the team's show car. He now had 3 full-time crew members, and designs on running 10 of the remaining 19 races. "I'm not out there to race myself against Earnhardt or Allison," he said on June 12th. "I'm out there to stay out of their way. In 2 or 3 years, I should be ready to take my place." Dover marked the first time Belmont qualified since Rockingham, and he was now receiving 2 sets of sticker tires from a big-name team each week. Once these tires were expended, Belmont scuffed more Goodyears for the Ford teams. In this particular race, he ran at least 20 single-lap runs, then came in for a tire change. This helped offset the tire bill, which for Belmont required making some painful decisions. Sometimes it was a matter of skipping meals and scrounging for dry packaged goods from the local Dollar General. Other times, the stakes were even higher.
I mean, literally, if you can picture this conversation, we're running 19th at Rockingham, and we're a couple hundred laps into the race, and I'm fishing for tires. And my wife says, "Well, if we put on a set of tires, you have to promise me you're going to run 4 spots better, because that's going to have to run 4 spots better to pay for the tires."
Wow.
So you either gut it out and we pay the mortgage payment, or we put the mortgage payment on tires and hope we run better. You know, so that's the kind of, these are real conversations, okay?
And this was when this is in Cup, that is, right?
That's in Cup, yeah.
Belmont ran 57 laps at Dover before an oil line fitting cracked, putting him out of the race. Belmont had little patience for the political side of racing. He recalled one particular instance with Bill Simpson regarding his safety equipment.
Yeah, Bill Simpson came over and took a pair of gloves off the dashboard of my car because, yeah, his guys gave me a set of gloves. So there's a Simpson decal on the car. But I was also wearing Design 500 suits, Theodora shoes, and I had Arai helmets, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I was racing for a living. These people all gave the shit to me. And Bill was like, "Well, you know, we'll give you all the accessories. We'll give you all your accessories for free if you buy a driver suit." I'm like, "Bill, I don't have to buy driver suits. I get them for nothing. And I'm wearing a 3-layer, and you guys are only selling 2 layers." You know, and, you know, but I didn't play the political game very well.
He also turned down an option to run for Melling Racing midway through the '92 season as a replacement for Chad Little.
I mean, I didn't want to drive for somebody else. So when those things came up, I wouldn't even entertain the conversation. I mean, and I'm explaining that to you. I don't regret it, but I'm telling you the insanity of my mindset at that time was, I want to be just like Alan Kulwicki. I want to do just like Darrell Walton. I want to be an owner-operator winning races, yeah? And I didn't want to drive for somebody else.
This stubbornness extended into more than one moment where he butted heads with NASCAR. He and his crew came into the sport with long hair. After his wife Jennifer, a hairdresser, cut their hair before the race in Michigan, their car had much less trouble getting through tech inspection. But there was also a moment at Darlington in '92 when Belmont remembered an act of kindness toward he and his crew as they headed back to their rented mobile home.
We're coming back, and Mike Helton himself stops his Suburban or whatever the hell he was driving, and he loads us in and takes us back to the camper. Now, that might be insignificant to most people, but that guy's like the man, okay? He's at the top of the game. And, you know, and we have had words through the years because I'm not the most fun guy when they pick apart my race cars and don't like what I've done for them. So I've had many visits with Mike Helton in the Big Red Trailer, okay?
Understood.
And they weren't all pleasant. But the guy picked me up out on the highway and drove me back to the camp. And to me, it's just like, he didn't have to do that. I mean, he could have just drove by and ignored the fact that we were there.
It was for perhaps this reason that Belmont didn't mind when NASCAR asked for something in return.
I was a starving independent, okay? But when Richard Bostic and Bruce Pacher put that caravan of stars, whatever the hell they called it, together, they would take like 7 or 8 of us to a local racetrack in whatever town we were in. And they would take us down there and put us in the locals' cars. We would go out and do a little exhibition race, you know? So, but I mean, for a guy that's trying to make a living in 1992, $1,000 to drive somebody's late model around Huntsville, Alabama, or run a late model at Grandview, or, you know, when we were at Pocono, or I can't remember all the places we went, but it was me and Skinner before he hit it big, and Bobby Hill and Michael Waltrip and Jimmy Spencer, and trying to remember who all else it was. But it was just, you know, back then, like, no bullshit, NASCAR would come up to the garage area with a 15-passenger van, and they'd say, all right, you, and you, we're going into the infield. And they would take us in and, you know, do an impromptu autograph session.
Oh, my God.
You know, and we would do, you know, it was myself and Brett Bodine and Ted Musgrave, and there was just a handful of guys, you know, that, you know, when you're in a certain end of the garage area, you know, you kind of hang with the same people, you know.
Belmont failed to finish 6 of the 8 races he started, and cut short his season when he ran out of money after the Southern 500. He planned to serve as crew chief for the Fall Dover race with Dorsey Schrader behind the wheel. Schrader's contract with Jack Roush had prevented this. "We did it on $250,000, said Belmont of his '92 season, and that included buying cars and everything. Still, among the races that Belmont started was a return to Daytona on the 4th of July, where he was on the same track as Richard Petty, who took the lead on the opening lap. "Listen," said Belmont, "I raced 50 laps side by side at Dover with Richard Petty, and it was for 25th spot. But you know what? It was Richard Petty." This was just one of several priceless moments he got to experience that season.
I gotta tell you, one of the craziest things that ever happened was the Unical Record Club, AJ Foyt, you know, the AJ Foyt, the greatest race car driver on the planet, had not been to Darlington, so they made him go to a rookie meeting. So it's just like the stupidest thing you ever seen, but it's like, that's the rules.
In 1993, Belmont made his lone cup attempt in the July race at Daytona, where this time he ran the number 79 with returning sponsorship from Skip's Boots. After he failed to qualify, he set his sights on 1994, where he picked up additional sponsorship from Metal Arrestor, Dr. Diecast, and McAllister Construction. The black and white Ford Thunderbird used a nose from a car used in Days of Thunder, and on occasion ran Hoosier tires in place of Goodyear's. He made 5 attempts that season, including the inaugural Brickyard 400, which he debated about even attempting until just days before qualifying. With just $5,000 in sponsorship, half of what top teams spent on their tire bill alone, Belmont ranked just 68th in time trials. He didn't make any of the other races either, though his car was itself produced in diecast. The last of these attempts came at Michigan in August, where he didn't arrive in time to practice because the oil filter housing cracked on his hauler. Unable to qualify with a car that this time had brand new Goodyear tires on it, Belmont seemed headed toward another large financial hit. That is until ARCA approached him about running the companion race at the track that weekend. Belmont had never made a single ARCA start at the time and would have to change his car number, as John Wilkinson III had the number 59, a small price for a guaranteed start, where he qualified 25th in the field of 42 for a 100-lap dash.
I ended up racing with Jeff Purvis, and I led some laps, I think, and had a real shot to win it. Came down pit road, and my guys come over the wall with 4 brand new tires, stickers. And I'm like, I'm on the radio to my wife going, what in the hell is going on? Because I have the money to buy tires. And then Uncle Tom said, we'll talk about it later. I'm like, okay. So next pit stop, I come in. The guys come over the wall with another set of stickers. So I'm like, what? You know, and I'm like, guys, you know, we're racing an ARCA race. We just spent $4,000 in tires for, you know, a $3,500 purse or whatever the hell it was.
It was then Belmont heard a familiar voice over the radio. It was Don Hawk, the same man who helped him get his first Cup ride in 1989.
So I'm going down pit road, going through the gearbox with the second set of tires on there, and Hawk comes on the radio, and my uncle must have given him the radio. Hawk comes on the radio and says, those tires are compliments of Dale Earnhardt. Go out and give me a win. So,
wow.
You know, so now you have to picture the whole politically incorrect of this. You got a guy with a leather Goodwrench jacket standing in a pit of a guy that's running a Ford, and, you know, but now Don was a Ford guy way back when, and he helped me back then.
As the race wound down, Belmont was still among the leaders.
Here's Belmont, the black and white car on the outside, right behind the 5 car. There we see L.W. Miller go in the corner. He gets up in the line, trying to go by on the outside, and when he gets in that line, he loses control. You see slide towards the wall. There he corrects, and when the car comes back, he corrects again. Now he goes up. Oh, and Belmont cannot get through. We see the flaps. Look at the flaps come up on the 5 car.
And there's Andy Belmont's car. What's left of Andy Belmont's car, the metal arrestor. We'll have to have some metal released from around the tire areas.
Hey, guys, you're on the wrong side. Hey, guys. Come over here, guys. No, they didn't hear me.
They probably didn't want to see that side.
Undaunted, Belmont came across the finish line in 4th and on the lead lap, which earned him a post-race interview.
Yard somewhere.
Got beat up on both sides, but yet running very strong, and he's making a serious challenge for 4th position.
You know, Belmont said he had not been able to qualify for Winston Cup Show. He wanted to come run the ARCA show just to be able to get their confidence up. This would boost your confidence tremendously.
I guarantee you.
Well, Andy Belmont, she got into the wall there or got into somebody. I mean, they just pushed the car by, and as Benny said, it looked like it belonged to the junkyard, but man, what a job you did to finish 4th.
Yeah, one of Benny's junkyard dogs. Metal arrestor Ford. I mean, Mark Tudor was up top. He called us a great race. I think we had a second-place car. Robert Yates did a hell of a job on the motor. I mean, we just had her dialed in. I was out there cruising 5th, 6th, and we had a pit gun break on that last stop. That's why we got so far back out of line on pit stop. We had some good stops. I really felt we'd run second, but you know, I had to lay low for a couple laps there and make sure she was going. It wasn't go down the straightaway worth a damn, but you know.
What happened on the wreck when the car got away from you?
John, we had that restart, and I don't know who it was. I'm not real familiar. It's my first ARCA race with these guys, and white car in front of me, he just kind of carried it in the corner a little too hot, and the folks here at Michigan International, they're putting a great job trying to keep the racetrack in shape, and they had some lime or something up there, and if you got up out of the groove, just touched it, kind of sucked you in, and he got up in it, and I woed out of the throttle, but his car's all around. There wasn't a whole lot we could do, so I just kind of hung on and drove through it. So.
And you sound excited. It sounds like we're over at Victory Lane down here with Andy Belmont, Jerry, instead of over here by the gas pumps. But he's really pumped after a 4th place finish.
Thank you.
Belmont ran another 2 ARCA races that year. He rebounded from early ignition issues to finish 5th in the season finale at Atlanta, clawing his way from 40th on the grid. He drove a car sponsored by Old Milwaukee that weekend, a throwback scheme in honor of the late Tim Richmond. When Jeff Green qualified the Sadler brothers entry 10th on the grid, Belmont's team was again forced to change car numbers, this time from the 95 to the 91. From there, the decision became clear. Competing in ARCA was better than struggling in Cup. But with 4 laps to go in his first ARCA 200 at Daytona in 1995, a race won by Andy Hillenberg, it was Belmont who caused the event to end under caution.
Oh, Andy Belmont over on top of Bowser's car, and Belmont flips through the air off of the second corner.
But the car did it so suddenly, there was not time for the flaps to deploy, and
He's out of the car. Oh,
that's great.
Are we glad to see that? Boy,
you thought he won the race.
Andy, you survived quite a ride. Wow. Well, they are tears of joy down here as Andy Belmont has gotten a big hug from wife Jennifer. And Andy, that was a frightening one. Glad to see that you're okay out there.
Hey, I always wanted to do this, but I wanted to do it from Victory Lane. Is Chris Berman watching this?
Man goes topsy-turvy and thinks about his Sports Center highlight. That might be your highlight. You're able to smile, thankfully. What happened?
I don't know. You know, we got a bad pit stop there the last stop, and I got out a little late. You know, we were in that lead group the whole bunch, and me and Hillenberg drafted real good all day. I really thought we had a top 5, top 3 car. And I was just trying to catch that outside group going around the outside of Boucher. And, you know, I really don't know. You know, it's showtime. You know, the last few laps, everybody gets together. You don't know what's happening out there. Cars start moving around a little bit. Everybody's giving it that little extra. And quite honestly, I don't know if the cars got sucked together. I'm not going to blame anybody. You know, it could have been my fault, could have been it. I'm not going to blame anybody. You know, it's just air does weird things to these race cars at the speed we're going. And I just hope that before the body got all tore off of it, everybody saw Old Milwaukee and Delco and Phoenix Express and all that. And, you know, we're going to go put another one together, and we'll be in Atlanta. And, you know, I just can't wait to get back. That's all I can tell you. It's just, that's all I know what to say. You know, Natalie and Allison, Daddy's okay. I'll be home soon. This is what I do for a living, girls. Just hang in there.
You got out, you were upside down, you're on top of Bobby Boucher, and I want to ask you how that felt, but then you got out and got up on the roof of the cars if it weren't damaged enough.
Well, you know, my spotter's up top. The whole time I got to tell you, when you run dirt modifieds for 11 years, getting upside down is not uncommon. You know, it's just we won lots of races, but we got on our lid a bunch too, you know, gone for it. And I just told the safety crew, it's the first time I watched the whole thing, you know, but I just knew that the spotter, we were having radio trouble all day, and I just got out of the car, jumped on the roof so the spotter could see that I was okay. He was okay with communication with the pit, but they were having a problem with communication with me. So I just jumped on the roof of the car and let him know I'm all right, I'm fine, you know. And the safety crew, and poor, you know, the safety crew are the greatest here in NASCAR and ARCA. You know, I mean, the car never hardly came to a rest, and I'm sitting there thinking about undoing my net to let them know I'm okay, and they were there. You know, I mean, it's just that quick. And I just wanted my girls watching TV at home to know I'm all right. And, you know, it's just when you do something like that, the sponsor gets a plug. You know what I mean? That's who pays the bills. You got to be thinking all the time. So I'm okay. It's just, like I said, I wanted to tell you we're going to Disneyland for Victory Lane, but it was like a ride at Wet n Wild.
Despite his growing media coverage, Belmont couldn't commit to the full ARCA schedule without a sponsor. That problem was solved in late 1997, when he landed perhaps the biggest deal of his entire career. At the time, America Online was just beginning to establish itself as the most popular gateway to the internet. At the time, AOL was owned by the Chicago Tribune, and its homepage provided targeted news reports from 58 so-called digital cities across the United States. Arden Portney, the Director of Business Development for Digital City Philadelphia, was a former co-worker of Wes Hughes, the president of Belmont's fan club. This connection got Belmont a meeting with Eddie Leonard at AOL's office in Dulles, Virginia. AOL was looking to advertise in motorsports but didn't know how to get started. So Belmont picked up Ben Geisler, a University of Pennsylvania student who happened to be the son of famous late model racer Glenn Geisler. The two drove to Dulles, where they put together a sponsorship proposal. They spent all night on it, preparing for a meeting at 9 o'clock the next morning. It had to be perfect. AOL was receiving offers from other race teams.
We get there, we're sitting in the lobby, and they said, well, we're going to have to cancel the meeting, yada, 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 something's come up, blah, blah. But we can do the meeting in the car on the way to the airport if you want to. So we're like, okay, who cares where the meeting takes place? But literally, my sponsor deal with America Online that lasted all them years for all them $1 million was done. God is my witness. We took napkins out of the center console of an Explorer, okay? And Eddie Leonard and Chris Geisler initialed what we were doing. And I was the 411th proposal that they looked at, and they bought me.
Wow. Wow.
And we did the deal.
With that, Belmont had his sponsor for 1998, unveiled the number 40 America Online Ford, the number chosen to promote AOL's newest version 4.0. Curiously, the AOL sponsorship wasn't enough to run the full season. It took additional backing from tech firm Comcheck, which was among the other Fortune 100 companies that would join Andy Belmont Racing. York Heating and Cooling and AmeriQuest would follow soon after. Belmont's Thunderbirds, sold to him by Ricky Rudd, would test equipment for other Ford teams, just as he had in 1992. This time, Belmont was specifically testing parts for Jasper Motorsports number 77 in the Cup Series. This put Jasper's logos on Belmont's cars, and their engines under his hoods. The full season effort began with a 12th place finish in the opener at Daytona, his best in the series since '95, followed by a runner-up to Kirk Shelmerdine in Atlanta, a new career best. He'd finish second again at Winchester and close out the year 5th in points. Through it all, Belmont's hands-on approach from his dirt tracking days led to some creative ideas in the shop.
Our rules today are, I think it's a 15-inch maximum with a 3-inch split. Well, way back when we shot on the pole, we had a track bar 27 inches high in the car. We had to build a custom-made clip. When they crawled under the car to see this contraption, they had no idea what they were looking at. So when we built this car, we built a purpose-built car for Talladega, and we had this contraption built on the trailing arm and the rear housing, and the track bar almost touched the back windows, how high it was in the car. But the car, like we went down there to test, and I said, I just want to try this. I just had a weird idea that, I just had this strange idea that we could get, that the air would not let the car spin around, and we could just keep freeing it up, and the driver wouldn't know the difference. And so we just kept raising the track bar, and the car kept going faster and faster and faster, and then going down a straightaway, the spoiler was further and further out of the air. So, but it's funny, we talk about it now, but it's just funny that the guys that you raced with and you came up with, they got pictures of your cars in their toolboxes. They're trying to figure out what the hell you did,
Belmont's best ARCA season came in a 2001 dominated by Frank Kimmel. He ranked 3rd in the standings, trailing only Kimmel and Jason Jarrett. AOL stayed with Belmont through it all, not leaving until early 2002 when they signed a full season deal with Richard Childress Racing's newest Cup team. I like this series because there's only 22 races, 25 maximum, said Belmont in 2004. I still get to play ball with my kids. I still get to do things that are fun. I still get to be home. I'm not consumed. I'm perfectly happy here in the ARCA series, making a living. In 2003, another familiar brand would join the Belmont effort. At the time, Verizon was growing into the largest wireless company in the United States. They were also among the many companies competing for recognition in the collect call industry through their number 1-800-USE-THE-VZ. That August, when Belmont learned a classmate of his 4th grade son Kyle was struck with a rare illness, Belmont put her name on the hood of his car and donated his winnings to her family.
In Ford, quite a story. Andy and his team have decided to donate their winnings tonight here at Winchester to the family of Shannon Michon, who's a 4th grade classmate of Andy's son Kyle at Our Lady of Grace School in Pendle, Pennsylvania. She's got a condition called brain AVM. She's been hospitalized since July 4th in Philadelphia. It's a condition that results in stroke or aneurysm, and we're told it is inoperable for young Shannon Michon. So Andy and his team donating tonight's purse to help fund her care. And if you take a look at the hood and also at the rear bumper of the one car, you'll see Race for Shannon. The team has also placed their simulator car up in Philadelphia, and anyone who gets the opportunity to take a ride in the simulator, if they donate $1, they get the ride. All the money goes to Shannon's care fund, and they're also conducting a little bit of a prize giveaway. The winner will get an opportunity to ride in the ARCA Remax Series pace car at Talladega in a couple of weeks in September.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Andy Belmont and his team doing some great things there for young Shannon Michon, and we wish Shannon and her family all the best as she battles a very difficult situation up in the hospital in Pittsburgh, in Philadelphia, I should say.
That race was Winchester on August 30th, where Belmont was running among the leaders with 5 laps to go when disaster struck.
5 to go, 5, contact! Montgomery takes out Langston. They catch up Howard. Montgomery goes upside down in 2. Chase Montgomery slides down the racetrack. Mark Gibson tags him. Chase Montgomery gets flipped. Gibson rolls down the racetrack.
Andy Belmont stops. Holy smokes! All cars are wrecked. All kinds of cars are wrecked.
Big trouble in turn 2. Red flag on the speedway. We will stop this one with 5 to go. Wild action in turn 2.
A little pissant in the 27 car drove slamming the back of the 66 and turned him. I mean, these little kids that belong in kiddie cars, they ought to race in some other kind of racing for it. They come up here and tear our stuff all to hell. The Verizon car had a top 5 car all night. I felt terrible about passing Mark here. He loaned me a motor for the night, and he missed the shift there. I had to take it. I was trying not to pass him, trying to be, do the right thing. But, man, it just makes absolutely no sense with 5 laps left to tear up $200,000 worth of equipment because some punk kid out here don't have the experience and he just got his foot in the radiator cap.
I don't think I need to add any more, gentlemen.
Well, go ahead, Andy. Tell us what you feel.
Belmont slipped to just 11th in the ARCA standings for 2003, his lowest since going full-time in 1998. 4 top 5 finishes and 7 top 10s have been offset by 9 DNFs, most often due to engine failure. But behind the scenes, Andy Belmont Racing was doing well. Belmont had been able to capitalize on the growing popularity of stock car racing by building show cars and simulators, and was still bartering for race car parts for his own team. He had 7 full-time employees and 2 part-timers, with nicknames like Shaggy, Furby, Jed the Poet, and Perv. While attending a trade show, he attracted still another sponsor in Chaser, a precursor to 5 Hour Energy, which marketed itself as a remedy for hangovers. And when GM pulled their support of Pontiac from the Cup Series, Belmont purchased 6 Pontiacs from MB2 Motorsports to run in the upcoming ARCA season. As it happened, MB2 had already been building these Pontiacs to new NASCAR specifications for 2004, before the manufacturer had pulled out. Thus, Belmont could not only run the cars in Cup if he so chose, but to run them in ARCA only needed to widen the fender wells to accommodate for the series' fatter Hoosier tires.
And then, of course, the TV deal. I remember I was in the very first meeting when Bryan stood there with Mike Elton at Homestead talking about the $2.4 billion TV deal. And like numbers like that for a guy that's struggling to keep food on the table, it's like unheard of. So, yeah, hell yeah, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to try to be and do it. So it was like a chance to revitalize the career.
Belmont, now 46, entered one of these Pontiacs in Daytona's ARCA opener, but 2 opportunities came to run Cup. The first came from the Sadler brothers, who had fielded a Ford sponsored by Burger King for David Reagan to run in ARCA. When Reagan failed to qualify, the Sadlers attempted to enter that same car in the 500 and offered the seat to Belmont. The car didn't pass inspection, however, and ended up withdrawing. By then, on February 13th, Belmont selected his second option, to bring one of his MB2 cars to Rockingham and make his first Cup start since the 1992 Southern 500. Chaser had signed on as sponsor, as did New Jersey-based Continental Fire and Safety, a former backer of Marcus Auto Racing, which signed on February 19th. Belmont would run the number 59 once again, just as he had with Pat Reese back in '92, only this time he would do so as both owner and driver. And he'd also run the same paint scheme that he'd run in ARCA. Expectations for 2004 were frankly quite low. "I've got 8 motors," said Belmont that year, "and there ain't a one of them that guys next door would use for a boat anchor."
I have to ask, because this has been kind of dodged by a lot of these broadcasts and stuff. Did NASCAR specifically call you, like in February of 2004, and say, "Hey, we don't have enough cars at Rockingham, we need you to show up"? Did that ever happen?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. When there weren't enough cars, you know. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. And the deal is, look, however contracts were written, however stuff was, you know, whatever the fine print was on page 30 of the contracts that they had, who the hell knows? All I can tell you, you know, there's a bunch of guys that might have been pissed off that there was field fillers there. I'm pretty proud that my phone number was on the speed dial.
There we go.
Daytona Beach.
I like
that. And me and Andy Hillenberg and
You talking about Carl Long and those guys?
I mean, Carl Long, there was a bunch of us. Could we have been winning races on a Saturday night at some other racetrack somewhere? Probably. That's cool, because that's where we came from. All right? But it's the Cup.
At Rockingham, NASCAR originally requested Belmont put rookie stripes on his car. "Do I get to run for rookie again?" the driver asked. "Well, you haven't been here in a while," they answered. "Like, do you think I forgot how to do this?" he said. There was also some holdup in technical inspection, as NASCAR officials didn't have the Pontiac templates on hand. That is, until one official found them in the back of the room, still wrapped in plastic. Belmont also recalled getting some sneers from Jimmy Johnson's pit crew. Belmont made it out on track for practice and completed a single lap of 126.953 miles per hour, nearly 30 miles per hour off the fastest lap. He was then told that Kevin Harvick was making a mock qualifying run. Heading through turns 3 and 4, Belmont looked in the mirror to see where Harvick was running and grabbed too much wheel. The number 59 hit the flat, then skidded up the track and hit the wall. One report indicated that Morgan Shepherd was also involved in the wreck, which ultimately forced both drivers to withdraw. Belmont didn't make another attempt until 2 races later in Atlanta, where he qualified 41st for the Golden Corral 500. He again ran one of his Pontiacs, but just like Carl Long in Las Vegas, ran the number 02 for Hermie Sadler's team Score Motorsports. That team will be the subject of our next episode. Belmont's first run for Score started with a warning from NASCAR to pick up his speed just 12 laps in. His race ended after 80 laps with a 39th place finish for sponsor Intel Food Brokers. It was only Belmont's 11th ever Cup Series start.
Hermie's a businessman, and I'm trying to make a living. So I sold sponsorship for the race, and Hermie charged me less to drive his car than I got from the sponsor. So that was actually a decent payday.
17 drivers have taken time here at Darlington. Elliott Sadler is the quickest of them all at this point. Andy Belmont in the 02 on the racetrack.
Guys, we were talking about Sterling Marlin a while ago. He couldn't tell Lee McCall about his race car because he was out of breath. Walter Cox, who's up in the booth here with us, that monitors these race teams and the drivers, he said that when Kenny Schrader finished his lap, he said, I wore myself out talking to myself before that lap.
You know, Larry, I think it was back in, 92, when Davey got hurt at Pocono. When Andy Belmont, the guy that brought a car over to the Lehigh Hospital there in Pocono so they could fix a cast for Davey's hand?
Yeah, I mean, Talladega was the very next week, and then when it was determined about Cusey that even though he had a lot of bones crushed in his right arm, that we would be able to at least start the race at Talladega. Yeah, Andy, who's from that area, brought that car over there and worked with the doctors and the people trying to build this cast.
Belmont from Pendle, Pennsylvania officially.
He was 42nd quickest in practice.
So far, he's quicker than Kirk Shelmerdine.
Belmont also qualified for the next round at Darlington, site of what had been his last Cup start more than a decade earlier. This time he improved again, earning the lucky dog when Andy Hillenberg and Jeff Gordon had their hard crash. Belmont finished 37th after brake issues 69 laps into the race. Southern Pan Service, which backed him in a one-off Busch Series race a year earlier, was the main sponsor. Later, Belmont would break down the expenses of the weekend. He earned $51,225 for the 37th place finish, but even while saving money driving for Sadler, incurred $49,163.50 in expenses, meaning he only made $2,061.50 in profits. This was still preferable to the alternative.
The same cars, I've got all the exact same expenses as the ARCA, but I'm going to make more money to run last than if I win the ARCA race. Well, that's a no-brainer. And then they want you to be there. You run a couple and they call you because they're short. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sure that there's a couple people in our camp, so to say, that were like, hey, these are a couple good guys, Carl, Andy, and Andy, they'll do whatever you tell them to do, kind of thing. We'll be good boys. We'll play along like we're supposed to. We'll play our part. We'll get out of the way when we have to. And, so we go and we get paid what we get paid. And then, as I said, I was selling it for far more money than I could sell an ARCA race for. And, I made a decent six-figure number being a field filler. So they can piss and moan all they want about field fillers, but I got the money in the bank.
Heading into his next attempt at Texas, Belmont tapped into another of his passions for journalism. At the time he worked out the deal with AOL, he was writing features for Area Auto Racing News and PhillyRacing.com, and also participated in a Daytona radio show hosted by Preston Root. As the field filler discussion took hold early in the 2004 season, Belmont bought the domain name for fieldfillers.com, where he and other contributors would write articles of their own. The objective was to, in Belmont's words, throw rocks at those who looked down their noses at underfunded teams. The site went live on March 19th. Belmont himself did a feature on field filler Dale Earnhardt Jr., who that year at Las Vegas was struggling so badly with the handling of his car that he pulled out of the race, finishing 35th behind both Arnold Motorsports and Phoenix Racing. Even though some people refer to me as a backmarker, said Belmont, I've got a seat at the head table. Andy Hillenberg said it best, said Andy's wife Jennifer. It's not like being the new kid at school, it's like being the underprivileged kid. These guys are here on a scholarship, and we're here with holes in our genes.
Yeah, the fieldfillers.com to me was absolutely, I was just like, you had all these people throwing rocks at you, and in my fairly short-sighted mentality, I just thought, like, well, screw it, I'll throw them back. So I was just going to have fieldfillers.com, and we were going to celebrate the fact that we were field fillers. I wasn't ashamed of it. There were some big-name guys that were one-time racers that are now pseudo radio TV hosts, whatever you want to call it, and they had a mouthful of shit to say, and just my arrogance or sense of humor was simply, I thought it was absolutely hilarious, and my smart ass way of looking at it was, all right, well, let's embrace the fact that we're field fillers. Let's embrace the fact that we're driving shit boxes. Let's embrace the fact that we're riding around the back. Let's embrace the fact that we're making more money running 35th than we've ever made in our life in racing. Okay? All right? I mean, you have to understand, finishing 15th or 16th in a qualifying race in 1992 paid $3,500. Okay? And now we're running 35th in a cup race, and you're getting paid 20 grand or whatever it was. It was just insane.
But one particular quote got Belmont in trouble with NASCAR. Man, I am tired. 2 Diet Mountain Dews and a stacker. Can't sleep tonight. Got to get home. Missed getting the kids off to school. Went straight to work. Got to order more stackers for these long trips through the night. Mail order can still net you a real jolt with ephedra. While ephedra, then a controversial dietary supplement, wouldn't officially be declared illegal until April 12th, NASCAR had considered banning it for at least a year. On March 23rd, Belmont was asked point blank if he was taking it. Heck no, he told Claire B. Lang. No, I can't take that with my blood pressure medicine. My doctor would shoot me. I'm a seat of the pants kind of guy, and I don't take anything in life seriously. And ephedra is illegal after April 12th in this country, so to be candid with you, I didn't know it was illegal under the NASCAR substance abuse policy, but I wouldn't use it anyway because of my blood pressure medicine, so it's not an issue. NASCAR was unconvinced, and in Texas in April summoned him to the Big Red trailer to submit to a urine test. Belmont complied with the test, but took exception to what happened next.
John Darby was sitting there, and he's like, "We're not sure we want your kind here."
Whoa.
And I said, "Well, I'm not sure what kind I am." I said, "But I'll assure you, nobody talks to me like that." I said, "I was not raised that way." And I said, "Maybe your mother approves of this." I said this right to my phone. I said, "Maybe your mother approves of this language behind closed doors." I said, "But my mother wouldn't." So he told me to get the fuck out of his office.
Whoa.
So I walked out of the trailer, and I'm over there, working on a car. I was driving a Pontiac that TriStar owned, anyway. And John Darby came over and put his arm around me and said, "Don't worry about it. Wife will calm down. You just didn't like what you wrote in your news column there. We want you to be a little more polished with how you say things." I'm like, "John, all I did was say stackers are still legal, and we drink Mountain Dew. I mean, it's like, what's the big deal here?"
Yeah.
But they were all like, but you got to remember, this was about the time that they, this is when the whole drug testing thing started getting legs, and they were going to make a statement out of somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just told John Darby, I said, "John, I appreciate you putting your arm around me, and I won't be mad at you when I see it on the lake in Mooresville. I said, but this is bullshit. I said, you guys of all people know that I don't need throats. I said, you people know that I will do anything that NASCAR asks me to do. I said, I've carried race cars to Timbuktu, because you guys asked me to, for no money, just for an attaboy. And I said, this is nonsense. I said, listen, I'm not going to be spoken like that. I said, my father would kick my ass if he heard me tolerate being spoken to like that. You know?
Wow.
And, but that's
understandably.
But you see, that's the behind the scenes shit that you would never know and never hear.
Things didn't go much better in qualifying.
It's hard to tell. I mean, this racetrack, it's unlike Atlanta.
And a crash in turn 3. Backing it in is the 0-2.
And that's probably going to send him to the house, Mike, because he's one of the cars you talked about in the beginning, Andy Belmont in 02 with no provisionals.
Now, our trusty pit reporter said that he was the only cat in the first 10 or 15 there that had sticker tires. Most everybody else had buffed their tires. He was on stickers.
Story in USA Today, today's edition, about Andy Belmont, about how much he's made for each of his starts, but also how much it has cost him to run this car. He was basically breaking even until this happened.
And Darrell, it looked like the minute he went to turn that thing down into turn 3, the back end just came around with him. He got loose, and we've already documented it close to 200 miles per hour at that place.
And he knows right about here that he's getting ready to take a really, really hard lick into the outside wall. Bam.
You know, Darrell, you talked about sticker tires versus scuff tires. I think one of the big reasons I talked to Mark Martin again that the guys were scuffing their tires was the fact that they were seeing a little inconsistent feel from set to set.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard them, you know, with the 3 sets they got to use, I heard a lot of guys say, I like set 1, I don't like set 2. So very similar tire to what they ran at Homestead last year. The construction on this tire is about like what they had at Homestead last year. Same compound that they had at this race in last year as well.
You look at the fellows that we sometimes refer to as field fillers and what they've been earning per lap, and that money looks pretty good compared to what Kurt Busch earned for each of his 500 laps at Bristol. But of course, Busch has a $12 to $15 million full-time sponsor on this car, and that greatly exceeds the total sponsorship of the other 3 fellas in the picture. So that number of how much per lap that you earn, by the time you pay your expenses and deduct that sponsor money that you're not getting, it can be a losing proposition.
Belmont missed the show. After withdrawing at both Talladega and Pocono, he wouldn't attempt to qualify for another Cup points race until the return to Atlanta in October, where he missed the cut driving for Stan Hoover. He did enter the Nextel Open that year, but that will also be the subject of a future episode. I asked Belmont why he scaled back in the 2004 season.
Mainly because I got sick of it. You know, I had always promised myself, and I know this is going to sound really arrogant, but
no, go for it.
I always promised myself that I was a racer, and I was racing because I wanted to race. I was racing to be a racer. I wanted to be in the race. Whatever it took to be a racer, I was all in. But I always promised myself that when I started doing it strictly for the money, that I would walk away. And so I got ahead in the bank by a fairly significant number. And I said, you know what? This is 100%, 180% or 180 degrees opposite of what I've always promised myself. And I'm not going to be a whore any longer, sucking up the money.
Belmont also saw the writing on the wall, knowing that the age of the field fillers couldn't last forever.
When they decided that they had enough of you, you couldn't get a car through deck inspection.
Huh.
They control everything, okay? And you either play with their ball and jacks on their terms, or they take away the ball and jacks. It's not rocket science. And so when they fall out of favor with you, the same car that you brought to the last 3 races suddenly doesn't fit a template, or suddenly your engine is too low or offset, or, you know, the position of your spoiler on the deck lid is off by a 1/4 inch, or they don't like the bolts that are holding your back window in, or the straps on your windshield are now 30 thousandths too thin, or, I mean, the bullshit that they play, once the decision has been made arbitrarily, you know, they don't come down and tell you, hey, look, you know, we kind of don't need you next week. They don't do that. They still let you pay the fucking entry fee. They still let you buy tires and all that shit. And then they don't let you on the racetrack.
Man.
Okay? I mean, that's just, I don't mean to be, I mean, there's some ugly shit to it too, okay? Don't get me wrong. I don't want this to all sound like it's, you know, gumdrops and lollipops every step of the way, because it's not.
After the 2004 season, Belmont's focus turned back to his ARCA team. He'd started half of the races in 04, running both his MB2 Pontiacs and older Fords, and scored a season-best 7th at Salem. For the next couple years, he would balance his ARCA schedule with a couple more all-out efforts to qualify for the Daytona 500. When Booty Beer came on as a sponsor in 2005, Belmont entered the 500 with Hoover, but was eliminated in an accident after 24 laps. Still another sponsor, Year One Muscle Car Parts, would sign a similar deal in 2006 to back him in both ARCA and Cup, the product of a chance meeting during a Christmas parade in Brazelton. The sponsor even acquired a Chevrolet that Joe Nemechek had scored a pole with, and Derek Cope had run in 2005. Belmont put his familiar number 59 on the sides, and once again faced a stiff challenge. He ran next to last in Saturday practice, flirting with not making minimum speed, and lined up 27th in a field of 29 for his qualifying race. There, he short-pitted to get track position, and at one point admitted to the 8th spot with none other than Dale Earnhardt Jr. on his rear bumper. But it wasn't meant to be. Belmont ran out of gas and plummeted to 24th, out of the 500 field. He hasn't attempted the race since.
So, now here I am, completely heartbroken about not making the 500. Like, I've been through this exact same agony once before, being that close to making it, and or thinking I made it, and it was pure agony. And you know, I come wheeling the car in after the race, and the sponsors are jumping up and down and high-fiving and thrilled. And they're all showing me, you know, we got film, you know, Little Lee pushing you. We got Little Lee bump drafting with you. We got, you know, Little Lee this, Little Lee that. You know, you were up in the hunt with, you know, Mark Martin and whoever. I don't even know who was in the race. They were just going on and on and on. And it was a split second in time where I went, wow, you know, everybody gets something different out of this. You know what I mean? Here I am, you know, literally heartbroken that I'm not going to be in the 500.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, here's the sponsor and the guys that are paying the bills making it so I could get in a first-class car. Just thrilled because, you know, we were there and had we had a real shot at it, you know? So, and God forbid if we'd have made the race, I don't know how the hell we'd have been in the car.
The 2006 season also marked the last time Belmont took the green flag in an ARCA race, finishing 28th on September 4th at DuQuoin. For the next couple of years, he'd operate as a team owner in ARCA, developing new drivers such as Corey Rabinold, Tom Hessert III, and Grant Enfinger. Belmont closed his shop in 2012 to help run the family business, while his father took care of his ailing mother. But the story doesn't end there. Belmont remains active in racing to this day, as do his sons Kyle, Andrew, and Brett. While Andrew is named after his father, Kyle is named after Kyle Petty, and Brett after, guess who, Brett Bodine. In 2018, Andrew finished 9th in the ARCA race at Daytona, and Andy's returned to team ownership. Kyle currently serves as an interior mechanic for Penske Racing, and also worked for the Wood Brothers, the same team which set his father up with exhaust pipes on the old Pat Reese entry in '92. Andy was there to see him work in 2016, a profound moment for both father and son.
I don't think that people can grasp what I'm telling you, but I spent my life trying to be in the Daytona 500, okay? So when my son went to work for Glenn and Len and Eddie Yeah, Mr. Len, when my son went to work there, I don't think you can grasp my son and I standing on pit road, holding each other, crying. I'm a grown man. My kid is a grown man. We were crying.
Wow.
We were in the 500.
For Andy Belmont, it's a career he looks back on with pride.
As hard as it all was, and as much as I've sacrificed to get to the Cup, I would have done it all over again. And you know, the experiences and the memories and the friendships and all, you know, just I wouldn't trade it. I mean, look, you're talking to a kid that was a mechanic from Langhorne, Pennsylvania, that had a dream of getting to the Cup, okay? And I got there. And yeah, we were a back marker, and my average finish was 28th or 30th or whatever, and you know, the average qualifying spot was 33 or 35. I don't know what the record book says. It's kind of immaterial. All the people that look down their nose at you because you're a back marker, they don't have any idea how hard it was to get there to begin with, and they don't have any idea how hard people worked. You know, I mean, we had nothing to work with, but we polished it up and tried to make it work. You know, and you just, you know, and when you're doing the Cup deal and there's, you know, you're the local kid in town and everybody wants to touch that and be a part of it, even though you're driving a shit box, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is. It's just, but I wouldn't trade any of that.
He also looks positively on his experience as a field filler and believes that it helped make the sport more competitive today.
I don't know why or how it all came about the way it was, but I think that our shit boxes being out there in the way literally was the basis, or in some part of the thought process, to make the cars more sanitary, make them more equal, and equal the playing field, which NASCAR has done.
Perhaps this story captures Belmont the best.
You know, this is fast forward to some ARCA stuff, but I was taking care of a car for Andy Hillenberg at Pocono one weekend, and the guy that was driving the car, you know, a rental racer, went down in the corner, hit the flat. You know, all he had to do was make a lap. Didn't matter how fast he was going. All he had to do was make a lap, and he was in the show because they didn't have enough cars. And he hit the flat, backed it in the fence, and stuck the back bumper up into the oil tank. So we're literally loading the car onto the trailer, and jokingly, one of the guys from one of the other teams said, even Andy Belmont can't fix that one. And I went, hold that thought. We unloaded the car, rolled it back down in the garage. I cut the tail clip off in the garage area. My kids can tell you this story. My son works for Penske, and my other son, my two older boys. We literally cut the sheet metal off. My two kids, which were at the time probably 10 and 12, took the quarter panels, and they were smart enough to know how to take a body hammer and roll them over a settling bottle. So we straightened the quarter panels out, and I got there was a truck team at the time in Allentown. He had a brand new clip sitting down in his shop. So somebody ran to Allentown, brought the tail clip back, and I hung a tail clip from Friday night when they crashed at about 5:30, and the car rolled off to take the green the next day at 2 o'clock, or whatever the hell it was. And the guy finished lap down, but he was
wow. No,
he was at the long end of his talent, but the idea was they told me it couldn't be done, and we did it. So, you know,
I love that.
But I mean, guys were over there. I mean, there was a crowd watching me and my kids and a couple of my guys. You know, I'm literally styling up, building a new package tray, and you know, I cut the clip off, scabbing the clip on there, and all that crap. Yeah, it's a fun story. It was an incredible amount of work, but it was just like, I hate when people say, you know, you can't do that. It's like, what do you mean you can't do it? It's just frickin' iron. Give me a torch.
Both Andy Belmont and Carl Long, the subjects of these last two episodes, have one other thing in common besides being field fillers. In 2004, each made at least one start for still another owner-driver who was building a program of his own.
In America, there exists a sport that is driven by the fans. They are why everyone works so hard, on the teams and at the tracks, in front of the grandstands and behind the scenes, to give the fans the greatest race possible. NASCAR fans deserve the best, starting from the high banks of Daytona, all the way to the shores of California, and at every race in between. NASCAR fans, you're the reason for our success. Thanks.